All right, Rogue, it's our last day of Rogue's Reads. Okay, he really doesn't care so much about the book, though you should, because Coke and Pep are very much still in danger. Or Coke just got out of the shredder. He almost got shredded right up. Okay. That's no good. I wonder what's going to happen to him now. They still got all those cipher clues. Oh no, you just want your head scratched. All right, hi guys. Oh, got my hand in front of the camera. Hi guys. I'm Renee. I'm the children's librarian at Salem Public Library in Salem, Ohio, and that was Rogue. He is my co-host for Rogue's Reads, our virtual book club for kids in 4th to 8th grade. And so today is our last day of book club, and we are nowhere close to the end of this book. These books are just a little bit longer than I guess I thought they were. So even though today is the last one, I am going to finish this book today. I'm probably going to break it into 2 parts. So I'll record this one and I'll break it into pieces. I'll do some and then I'll finish it. So you're actually going to end up with 2 episodes today to finish this book. I'll just do part 1 and part 2. Like I did this. Yeah, yesterday, because that's when it got interrupted in the middle. I had to do it 2 parts as well. But today the 2 parts is just because I think it's kind of long and I want to make sure that we get all of it in there. I don't know. I'm just going to start reading and we're going to see how far we get. So like I said, Coke got, he narrowly missed being shredded. We were warned he was going to get shredded. Pep saved him from getting shredded. And now they are out in the middle of nowhere where the GPS tracker in their RV isn't working. So Coke assumes that means the GPS units in their head aren't working either because they're just out where there isn't GPS technology. We're finding that a little less and less these days where, pretty much every place you go in the United States, I think, has decent locators, at least to some extent. I say, I say that, but it was just 2 years ago that my husband and I traveled in parts of West Virginia that we couldn't pick up a GPS signal. And we were advised that if we started, we were in the mountains, and if you started your GPS like at the hotel where we stayed, it would hold and you could use it to get to your location, but if you try to turn it on halfway there, it would never pick up a signal. So I mean, I say that this is much better, this isn't a problem as much anymore, but that's not real necessarily true. So I think about it was just 2 years ago. So there are definitely still places that you can't get a GPS signal in the United States. So their car one doesn't work. Does that mean the ones in their heads don't work? I don't know. That's Coke's guess. So, all right, so they went to bed hoping nobody could find them. And we're going to start here. So we're in chapter 26, Nature Lovers. And we're not quite at the beginning. I read a couple pages into the chapter yesterday. I'm going to scooch over since I'm like off center here. Now I'm sitting like on Rogue. Hi, Rogue. Hi. All right. In the morning, Mrs. McDonald made pancakes for everyone, and they ate outside at a picnic table. Camping in a state park is a little different from the usual RV campground. More trees, more nature, fewer people. Isn't it beautiful here? Mrs. McDonald said, taking in a deep breath of clean air. So quiet and peaceful. Do we have to leave right away? Asked Pep. Can't we stay here a while? Yeah, we should move here permanently, said Coke. Actually, your mother and I thought it would be fun to do a little birding here before we got back on the road. The state park is known for birding. Hunting for birds, said Coke. Cool. Do we eat what we kill? Birding is not hunting, said Mrs. McDonald sternly. You watch the birds through binoculars. I should mention here that Coke knew perfectly well that birding did not mean hunting and killing birds. Sometimes he just liked to say obnoxious things to annoy his parents. I'm sure you can relate. Watching birds, he asked. What's the point of that? Hey. Daisy Ray. Sorry, neighbors. Daisy. Hey, Ray, come here. Be quiet. don't you come down here with me? Come here. She knows she just sees just I can't get her. Come here. Come on. Come down here where you can't see out that window. That's the problem. She can see out the window. Okay. You sit here with Mommy and read book. So, watching birds, he asked. What's the point of that? To appreciate the beauty of our winged friends, his father explained. I'd rather appreciate the taste of my winged friends, said Coke. Birding sounds boring, said Pep. Sounds more boring than whale watching. Whale watching is fun, said Mrs. McDonald. It would be more fun if you were allowed to shoot the whales, said Coke. We know Coke doesn't mean that. Look, you two don't have to come birding with us, said Dr. McDonald as he took 2 pairs of binoculars out of the glove compartment. Shh. You're big kids and you can be on your own for a while, but Mom and I are going. The sky was looking threatening in the distance, but Coke and Pep weren't about to sit around the RV for hours waiting for their parents to come back. When they had checked in, the park ranger had given them a brochure that described several scenic hikes through the forest. Do you think we'll be safe if we go on a hike? Pep asked. Nobody can bother us here, Coke said. There's no GPS signal, remember? Let's take our weapons just in case, Pep said. After grabbing the Frisbee grenade and Coke's backpack full of fireworks, they decided to hike the Marble Mine Trail, which leads to the entrance of an old mine where marble was quarried back in the days before the state park existed. They set out on the wide, well-marked trail into the woods. After about a mile, Coke suddenly stopped in his tracks. Listen, he said. Do you hear something? No. Neither do I, he said. It's perfectly quiet out here. I don't remember the last time I heard the sound of silence. Do you? Isn't that amazing? I can't wait to tell. I could hear the silence if you'd stop talking, Pep said. And he did, for a minute. Daisy! Shh. There's not much silence when you live with a Shih Tzu. Think of it, Coke continued. We're probably the only people for miles around. I wonder if there's a square inch in this forest where no human being in history has ever set foot, Pep said. When she looked up and saw this carved into a tree. OGAYOTAYUNGLEJAOOMRAY. You gotta be kidding me, Coke shouted, looking around to see if the person who had carved the letters was still in the area. Calm down, Pep said. But her brother was furious now. Enough with the stupid ciphers, Coke yelled into the woods. Come and get us, evil Elvis. What are you, chicken? Show your face, you coward. Maybe that message is for somebody else, Pep said hopefully. Maybe it's just some code the park rangers use. How could evil Elvis know where we are or that we'd come to this exact spot? Oh, he knew, Coke said, kicking the tree. Somehow, he knew. He knows everything. He knows what we're going to do even before we decide what we're going to do next. Him! Pep looked at the carving on the tree again. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. She didn't have her notebook with her to write down all the possible combinations. But after staring at the letters for a few minutes and seeing all those AY combinations, her face suddenly brightened. It's in Pig Latin, you big dope, she said. All you have to do is separate the letters into smaller words. Huh? I don't get it, Coke admitted. Simple, Pep explained. Oge is go in Pig Latin. Ote means to. Ife means the. Ungle J means it's go to the jungle room. Cute, Coke said. I actually figured out where they were supposed to go right there from this clue, so maybe you guys will too. We're in the middle of the forest, and he says to go to the jungle room. Another stupid, non-existent room we're supposed to find. This guy's driving me nuts. Let's get back to the RV before he jumps out from behind some tree. Wait a minute, Pep said, running to catch up with her brother. Didn't you tell me that evil Elvis said the ciphers didn't matter anymore? That was because he had me tied up, Coke said. He thought I would fall into the shredder, and that would be the end of me. But I got away. So the old ciphers matter, and now he's sending us new ones, too. When they got back to the RV, the first thing Pep did was open her notebook and add the new cipher to the list. 1, go to the living room. 2, go to the TV room. 3, go to the pool room. 4, go to the jungle room. A few minutes later, it had started to drizzle outside, and their parents came running back from their birding expedition. So how many birds did you kill? Asked Coke. Very funny, said Mrs. McDonald. We spotted an eastern bluebird. It makes it sound like a truly, truly, and soft gurgling notes. Dad took some great photos. So, said Dr. McDonald, should we get on the road or do you kids still want to live here permanently? No, both kids shouted. We hate nature. Let's blow this pop stand. Chapter 27. Let's turn it up a little. A thunderstorm was on the horizon as Dr. McDonald flipped on the wipers and steered the RV back on Route 48 heading west. To his relief, the GPS began working again as soon as he left the state park. It was a quick 10 miles to the small town of Menlo, and from there, just 2 miles until this appeared. Oh, there's a tiny little sign. Welcome to Alabama the Beautiful, Governor Robert Bentley. Woohoo, yelled Coke. Sweet home Alabama. Hey, can you guys name 2 things that the following people have in common? Hank Aaron, George Washington Carver, Nat King Cole, Helen Keller, Joe Louis, Willie Mays, Jesse Owens, and Satchel Paige. They were all from Alabama? Guess Pep. That's only one thing they have in common, Coke said. The other thing was that they were all human beings. You're a moron. Don't call your brother a moron, said Mrs. McDonald. She dropped her dog-eared copy of Georgia Off the Beaten Path into the garbage bag and took her brand new Alabama Family Adventure Guide out of the glove compartment. What's the plan for Alabama, Mom? Pep asked. It's starting to come down hard, said Dr. McDonald. Let's keep the driving to a minimum today. Well, there's the museum in Montgomery, said Mrs. McDonald. It tells the history of beef and cattle, and they have a great pest control museum in Decatur. Great, said Dr. McDonald with a groan. A museum devoted to bugs. Let's see, Mrs. McDonald continued. There's a spear hunting museum in Summerdale, and at the Hall of History Museum in Bessemer, they have Adolf Hitler's typewriter. Why is Hitler's typewriter in Alabama? Asked Pep. Doesn't say. Her mother replied, this is interesting. In the little town of Sylacauga, there's a monument to a lady who got hit by a meteorite that crashed through the roof of her house in 1954. And in the same town, they have a tribute to Gomer Pyle. Who's Gomer Pyle? The twins asked in unison. Never mind, replied both parents. Kids, ask your grown-ups who Gomer Pyle is. Say if they're my age, at least they probably at least know who he is. Well, you'll be pleased to hear that we're not going to any of those places, said Mrs. McDonald. Yay! So where are we going? Asked Coke. Wherever it is, it won't be much fun in the rain. Oh, you'll see, said his mother. Stay on Route 117, Ben. Outside, the sky was getting darker and more ominous. A few small towns passed by, Valleyhead, Henniger, as they traveled across rural northern Alabama. It was pretty, but after a while, pretty loses its appeal and the human brain yearns for different instead. Are we there yet? Asked Pep an hour after they had crossed the state line. Color me officially bored. They stopped for lunch at the side of the road near Guntersville Lake, but didn't get out of the RV because of the rain coming down. After lunch, they switched on to Route 72 West, and it wasn't long before they reached the outskirts of a large city, Huntsville, Alabama. Dr. McDonald pulled off the highway just past the University of Alabama campus. A strange sight came into view. 3 or 4 huge white rockets pointing into the sky. He pulled into a parking lot. The rain had tapered off a bit, but now there was lightning and the rumble of thunder in the distant sky. Is this where we're going today? Asked Coke. Yep, said Mrs. McDonald. Oh, said Pep, disappointed. Rockets are cool, said Coke. You think anything that ignites is cool. Well, anything that ignites is cool. Huntsville, Alabama is known as the rocket capital of the world, and it was here... Oh, there's a sign there, the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, the home of Space Camp. It was here where the rockets were developed to put our astronauts in orbit around the Earth and on the Moon. Parts of the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station were designed here too. The U.S. Space and Rocket Center is a museum devoted to the space program, Mrs. McDonald read from her guidebook. The Apollo 16 capsule is here, as well as a full-size replica of a Saturn V rocket. They have all kinds of interactive exhibits, demonstrations, and IMAX movies. They even have a rock that was brought back from the moon. Isn't this exciting? Dr. McDonald asked, forgetting for a moment that teenagers don't get excited about anything their parents tell them is exciting. It actually was exciting, but the twins weren't about to admit that. Mrs. McDonald passed out ponchos for everyone to wear so they wouldn't get soaked in the rain. Coke was about to put on his backpack, but he stopped. If this fireworks got wet, they would be useless. Pep's Frisbee grenade would be ruined too. She had been specifically warned to keep it dry. Reluctantly, the twins left their weapons in the RV and made a dash through the rain for the ticket window. Do you think they have any rides here? Coke asked while they waited in line. No, they don't have rides here, Dr. McDonald replied, irritated. It's not some silly amusement park. It's a museum. That's what's wrong with kids today. You can't enjoy anything unless you're staring at a screen or your body's being thrown back and forth in a little car. When I was a kid, we used to go outside and shush, Ben. A flash of lightning lit up the sky. At the ticket window, the lady behind the glass ran their credit card through her little machine and handed Dr. McDonald 4 tickets. I couldn't help but overhear your conversations, she said. Actually, we do have 2 rides here at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. I think you'll enjoy them. Yeah, the twins yelled with a fist bump. Rides! Can we go on the rides first? Asked Pep, please. What are you kids, 2 years old? Dr. McDonald said, thoroughly disgusted. Ben, okay, he agreed. You can go on the rides first. Go have fun. We'll catch up with you later. Yay! They made their way over to Space Shot, an amusement park-style ride in which a large group of people sit on chairs that wrap around a tall tower. This looks scary, Pep told Coke as they were strapped into their seats. Will you relax? It's just a ride. A voice instructed the riders to put your hands and feet out, and at that moment the chairs were propelled 140 feet straight up in the air in 2.5 seconds. Coke and Pep screamed, of course. It felt like they were in a rocket ship that had lifted off its launching pad. When they reached the top, they experienced pure weightlessness for a few seconds before Space Shot fell back to Earth. That was cool, Pep said when they were unstrapped from the seats. She was no longer fearful. Let's go do the other ride. The G-Force Accelerator is in a round silver building that looks like a flying saucer. Before you go inside, a sign near the entrance lists a bunch of medical issues that should prevent people from getting on the ride. Motion sickness, asthma, heart problems, seizures, back or neck pain, inner ear problems, detached retina, and so on. Well, they had me on the motion sickness one. I'm out. Do you think this thing is safe? Pep asked. Of course it's safe, said her brother. They wouldn't have it here if it wasn't safe. The twins were escorted into a large white tent. For your own safety, announced the disembodied voice, inside the G-Force Accelerator, cross your hands over your chest. If at any point you feel sick, say the word stop, and the G-Force Accelerator will come to a stop. They just say that so you can't sue them afterward, Coke told Pep. If you don't have any questions, the voice continued, you may proceed inside the G-Force Accelerator. A door slid open with a whoosh, and the voice told them to enter the G-Force Accelerator. It was a round room that was larger and darker than the waiting room. There were about 40 cushioned segments along the circular wall, half of them red, half of them blue. Coke and Pep were the only riders. The voice instructed them to buckle themselves in tightly. There were no seats, just seat belts attached to the wall. It's a standing ride in which you lean back slightly. In the center of the room was a little booth where a woman was sitting in front of a control panel, and her back was to the twins. Greetings, she said into a microphone after the door had closed. Welcome to G-Force Accelerator. This is the same type of simulator we use to help our astronauts train for a space flight. Does that voice sound familiar to you? Coke asked his sister. Before Pep could answer, the woman turned around in her chair. Mrs. Higgins! Pep shouted, no! Yes, it was her. The psycho who had set their school on fire, chased them through the house on the rock, tricked them into causing a riot at Wrigley Field, and tried to blow their eardrums out at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, look who's here, said Mrs. Higgins, as cheery as can be. My good friends, the McDonald twins. What a coincidence. How nice to see you two again. Help! Pep screamed, struggling to free herself from the seatbelt. Help! Let us out of here, demanded Coke. Oh, don't be such babies, Mrs. Higgins said as she pressed the spin button on the control panel in front of her. This is going to be fun. The G-Force Accelerator started rotating slowly around Mrs. Higgins' booth in the middle. We walked right into her trap, Pep said disgustedly. I knew it. We never should have come here. Coke looked all around him for an opening. A door, a window, an emergency sign. See, it's not dangerous, Mrs. Higgins told them soothingly. It's like one of those little teacup rides they have at kiddie amusement parks. I don't like it, Pep said, and I don't like you. Let me tell you a little bit about G-forces, said Mrs. Higgins as she turned a knob to make the room spin just a little bit faster. You see, 1G is the regular gravitational force that we feel every day. 2G is twice that force, obviously. As the G-force gets higher, it's almost as if you get heavier. So if you weigh 100 pounds, at 2 G's, it feels like you weigh 200 pounds. At 3 G's, it feels like you weigh 300 pounds. And so on. See, this is not only fun, it's educational too. The twins were beginning to feel a little dizzy as they spun around and around. Coke closed his eyes for a moment, but that made it worse. Why are you here? Demanded Pep as she felt her body press against the wall of the G-force accelerator. You told us that you had stopped hurting children and you were into, what was it called? Spelunking, Coke said, exploring caves. You see one cave and you've seen them all, said Mrs. Higgins cheerfully. That's the problem with spelunking. You could go away for a few million years, come back, and the cave would look exactly the same as it did the first time. Me? Action. That's why I applied for the job here. Everything is in motion. Let's turn it up a little, shall we? No! Stop! She turned the dial in front of her and the G-force started spinning faster. The rumbling noise it made as it turned got louder too. I'll bet you hardly even noticed when it went from 2 G's to 3, right? There, Mrs. Higgins said. It's not so bad, is it? Yes, Coke yelled. He felt like a weight was bearing down on him and there was an invisible pressure against his face. It's bad! Turn it off! The human body is an amazing machine, don't you think? Asked Mrs. Higgins. Isn't it interesting to think about how much a body can endure? It all depends on the magnitude of the G-force, the duration, the location, and the position of the body, you see? Shut up! Pep screamed as she spun around and around. We don't want to hear it. One good slap to the face might have the force of 100 G's, but that doesn't kill anybody, continued Mrs. Higgins. Yet the force of 16 G's for a minute can kill you, and so will 75 G's for just 1 second. How are you two feeling over there? I think I'm going to puke, Pep shouted. I feel terrible. Well, maybe now you know how I felt when you kids threw Dr. Warsaw out of the infinity room at the house on the rock, said Mrs. Higgins. Maybe now you know how I felt when he dumped me and got married to your Aunt Judy instead. That wasn't our fault, Coke screamed. Leave us alone. Oh no, not now, said Mrs. Higgins. This is too much fun. She's crazy, Pep shrieked. Do something, Coke. What do you expect me to do? He replied. Stop it. Did you say go faster? Asked Mrs. Higgins. Sure. She gave the dial another twist and the G-force accelerator spun even faster. No! Coke tried to move his head left and right, but discovered he couldn't. The centrifugal force had pinned it to the wall. Similarly, his arms and legs were jammed in their positions. He was helpless. At 4 G's, you start losing your color vision, said Mrs. Higgins said gleefully. Anything higher than that and your lungs start to collapse. Your esophagus stretches and the blood starts to pool in your legs. Gee, I wonder how fast this thing can go. That's enough, Coke yelled. We give up. We'll do anything you want. Just stop it. I want to get off. Pep shrieked again, but she was drowned out by the noise of the G-force accelerator. In space, no one can hear you scream, Pep, Mrs. Higgins said. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you can't stand it anymore, and then we're talking about Gilloc, G-I-L-O-C. What's Gilloc? Coke asked, fighting off the nausea that was beginning to overtake him. Gravity-induced loss of consciousness, explained Mrs. Higgins. Your blood is pushed toward your feet. Your heart isn't strong enough to push it up to your brain anymore, and the lack of blood flow gives you tunnel vision. And finally, everything goes black. I can't wait. The twins fought to conserve their energy and stay awake. The flesh on their cheeks was flapping like a flag on a windy day. Are you still conscious? Mrs. Higgins asked as they spun around and around her. Wow, I'm impressed. You're pulling 7 G's now. At 9 G's, it will feel like your head weighs 90 pounds, and anything over 10 G's, well, your shoes come flying off your feet. Your teeth get pulled right out of your gums one at a time. Your eyeballs go flying out of their sockets. Your arms get ripped off the shoulders, your internal organs, and that's when the lights went out. Drat! Shouted Mrs. Higgins. The G-force accelerator started slowing down. Gradually, the rumbling grew quieter, and finally the ride came to a complete stop. What happened? Pep asked. I don't know. Coke looked up. There was nobody sitting in the control booth. Where's Higgins? He asked. She's gone, Pep replied. The twins unstrapped themselves from their seatbelts and stumbled out the door of the G-force accelerator like their bodies were made of rubber. Their parents were waiting for them at the exit. So was it fun? Asked Mrs. McDonald. The electrical storm knocked out all the power. The whole place shut down. It's a total blackout. I bet you kids are disappointed that the ride stopped in the middle, huh? said Dr. McDonald. Yeah, Coke said, holding his head. We should demand our money back. Mrs. McDonald suggested getting some ice cream, but the restaurant, the Rocket City Grill, was closed because of the power failure. Even the gift shop had its doors locked. After they had recovered their equilibrium, the twins managed to walk under their own power back to the parking lot. They were still nauseous, dizzy, confused, and more than anything else, exhausted. Where are we going now? Coke asked, even though the only place he really wanted to go was to bed. Dr. McDonald turned the key in the ignition. In the immortal words of Horace Greeley, he said, "Go west, young man." All right, I'm going to stop there for now. We're about 25 minutes in, so that's a good place to stop and take a break. And I will be back. So I'll post the next video right after this, so you can keep on watching, or if you can take a break, whatever you want. But we've got about 40 pages left, and yeah, I'll probably break that one into 2 pieces. I'll see you guys later. Thanks, bye. Hello. Oh, very close. Hi, buddy. You ready to do book club? Oh, Griffin's right there, too. Hi, Griff. Hi. And Daisy Ray. Oh, she's ready for a nap now. I thought you were going to stay awake today for book clubs. No? All right. She is awake. She's just hard to see her eyeballs under all that hair. Alright, guys. I'm back. So hopefully you've already watched part 1 for today. So this is part 2. Today is the last day of our book club, but we are not finished with our book, and I really want to share the end of it with you. So Rogue and I are back to do part 2. I think it's going to take 2 more parts. So I'm trying to keep them around 20-25 minutes a piece so that they're not huge. They're a lot faster to upload anyways. Facebook seems to like them a little better when they're not quite as big. We ended yesterday with Coke and Pep were in the, what was it called? The G-Force accelerator at the Space Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and Mrs. Higgins was trying to kill them again. Mrs. Higgins, I don't know. I feel like she's I mean, of course we don't want Coke and Pep to die, but I feel like she's really bad at her job. But they keep hiring her, so. Alright, so we're on chapter 28, Follow Your Nose. The rain was still coming down hard as Dr. McDonald pulled the RV onto I-565 out of Huntsville, Alabama, heading west. He could barely see through the windshield and almost missed the exit to turn onto Route 24. For the sake of safety, both parents agreed that it would be best to stop for the night as soon as possible. It took a while to reach it, but they finally pulled into Slick Rock, a campground in Russellville, Alabama. And by dawn, the sky had cleared and they got back on the road early. Soon, they were on I-22 and they saw this. Welcome to Mississippi, birthplace of America's music. Woohoo, hollered Coke, the Magnolia State. Can you smell the honeysuckle yet? Asked Mrs. McDonald. No, but I'm starting to smell the holding tank, her husband replied. Coke, it's time you did a dump. Okay, Dad. What are we going to do in Mississippi? Pep asked. Can we go to Yazoo City? Asked Coke. What's in Yazoo City? Asked his father. I don't know, Coke said. I just like saying Yazoo City. Mrs. McDonald opened her road guide to Mississippi and started leafing through it. Let's see, she said. Root beer was invented in Biloxi. Greenville is the towboat capital of the world, and the International Checkers Hall of Fame is in Petal. Oh, that sounds real interesting, Coke said, stifling a yawn. The world's largest shrimp is on display in Pascagoula, Mrs. McDonald continued. And oh, look! The man who invented the dollar sign is buried near Pinckneyville. Dr. McDonald was getting increasingly irritated. He's been getting grumpy for a little while now. With every offbeat destination, his wife suggested he would roll his eyes, shake his head, and let out a groan. The world's largest cedar bucket is in Oxford, Mrs. McDonald continued, and in 1884, at a shoe store in Vicksburg, a man named Phil Gerbert came up with the idea of selling left and right shoes together in the same box. Note to the reader, this stuff is true. I didn't make any of it up. Go ahead and Google it if you don't believe me. How did they sell shoes before that? Pep asked. One at a time, I guess, said Mrs. McDonald. That seems really strange. Who would buy one shoe? Asked Coke. A one-legged man? At that point, Dr. McDonald reached the point of exasperation. He grabbed the road guide to Mississippi out of his wife's hand. Tell you what, he said, forget about the stupid guidebook. And with that, he threw Road Guide to Mississippi out the window. Ben! Dad! Our lives are too planned out, Dr. McDonald said. That's what's wrong with the world today. We need a guidebook for everything. Why go anywhere anymore? You can just read about places in a guidebook or watch a video. Let's be spontaneous for a change. Let's just wing it. I can't believe you did that, Ben, shouted Mrs. McDonald. I would never throw your things out the window. I can't take it anymore, Dr. McDonald hollered, taking his hands off the steering wheel for a moment. Who cares about root beer and checkers and how shoes used to be sold? I say we head west and follow our noses. That's what the pioneers did when they settled this country. They didn't have guidebooks. They relied on their instincts. In the back, Coke and Pep rushed to grab their cell phones so they could text each other. Coke, that was awesome. Pep, Dad is going mental. She may have been right. Dr. McDonald was not known for his spontaneity. He was a planner, a list maker, a scheduler, an alphabetizer. But the family had been riding around in the little RV for more than 2 weeks now. And if you take laboratory rats and confine them in an enclosed space for a long period of time, they start acting strange. They become aggressive. They fight and engage in other antisocial behaviors. People are no different. A lot of us have probably experienced it over the last couple months. For the next few minutes, the RV was filled with the unpleasant sound of angry silence. The twins were afraid to say anything. Mrs. McDonald was fuming. Her husband had never been a mean man, and it wasn't like him to act so impulsively. She felt lost without a guidebook, just like he felt lost without his GPS. I'm going to stop at the first decent-sized town we come to, Dr. McDonald said, hoping to break the silence. Well, I'll get out and explore. You never know what you might find. But there were no towns in sight, just a lot of nothing out the window on I-22. It wasn't until they had driven almost 30 miles that a sign finally came into view. Tupelo. Okay, we're going to Tupelo, Dr. McDonald announced, slipping on his turn signal. What's in Tupelo? Asked Pep. I have no idea, her father replied. That's the beauty of it. We'll find out when we get there, because that's the kind of adventurous, spontaneous family that we are. Right, gang? Yeah, right, Dad, said Pep. Tupelo, here we come, Coke yelled with fake enthusiasm. I have an idea, said Mrs. McDonald. I'll Google Tupelo on my laptop. Then we can find out what sites. No, Dr. McDonald shouted. No Googling. We're going to be spontaneous for once in our lives. I'm serious, Bridge. Open that laptop and I'll chuck it out the window. I think he means it, Mom, said Pep. Mrs. McDonald resumed her fuming. I'll tell you something about Tupelo, Coke told the family. Did you know that before the Civil War, Tupelo was called Gum Pond? Thank you, Mr. Nobody Cares, said Pep. Dr. McDonald pulled off the highway at exit 90 and began to meander around the small town of Tupelo. They passed a bedding store, a cemetery, a couple of restaurants, and a suburban neighborhood. After about 5 minutes of meandering, everybody had had enough of Tupelo. I hate to break it to you guys, Cook said, but there's nothing going on here. Yeah, why did we come here? Asked Father. Your father wanted to be spontaneous, said Mrs. McDonald, and edged to her voice. Spontaneity is boring, said Coke. See, Ben, said Mrs. McDonald, you hadn't thrown my guidebook out the window. We could be going somewhere interesting right now. That's why I use guidebooks. But a few seconds later, they passed a little sign. Elvis Presley Park. The twins looked at each other, panic in their eyes. Elvis Presley Park? If evil Elvis was going to attack them anywhere, this would be the place. Said Dr. McDonald. Why would they name a park after Elvis Presley? We don't want to go to that park, Coach shouted from the back. It sounds boring. But it was too late. Dr. McDonald had already made the right turn onto Elvis Presley Drive, and that's where they saw this. I don't know how you guys can see. It's just a house and a sign. The birthplace of Elvis Presley. I'll tell you why they named the park after Elvis Presley, said Dr. McDonald, because he was born here in this very house. He pulled up to the curb near 306 Elvis Presley Drive and turned off the ignition. I don't think we should stop here, Dad, Cook said urgently. It looks like a rough neighborhood. We might get robbed. Yeah, it's probably boring, too, said Pep. Elvis was way before our time. I barely know who he was. Don't be silly, said Mrs. McDonald. Elvis is universal and timeless. Everybody loves him. This will be great for Amazing But True. See, Bridge, said Dr. McDonald as he opened his door. When you're spontaneous, you never know what you might run into. We're staying in here, Coke said, as his parents got out of the RV. Yeah, we don't want to go in there, Pep agreed. Fine, said Mrs. McDonald brusquely as she grabbed her camera. She and Dr. McDonald walked up the sidewalk to the little white house, leaving the twins alone in the RV. Too bad they missed the tour. Even though Elvis only lived in the tiny 2-room house for a couple of years, it had been designated a Mississippi landmark. Dr. and Mrs. McDonald took the tour and also visited the grounds. There's a museum, a fountain, and a statue of 13-year-old Elvis holding a guitar. Surrounding the house is the Walk of Life, 42 granite blocks representing each year of Elvis's life, with a little piece of information about what he did in that year. Also nearby is the church where Elvis and his family worshipped. Inside, you can watch a video that shows what church services would have been like when Elvis was a young boy. While their parents took their tour, Coke and Pep sat in the RV worrying. I bet evil Elvis is in there, Pep said, looking out the window. I hope he doesn't hurt Mom or Dad. If we went in there, I'm sure he would try to kill us, said Coke. And just then, there was a tap on the window at the other side of the RV. Ah! Pep screamed. A policeman was looking at them through the glass. It's him, Pep shouted. Evil Elvis. He's dressed like a cop now. Get the fireworks ready, Coke. But it wasn't evil Elvis dressed like a cop. It was a cop dressed like a cop. Do your parents know you're here by yourselves? He asked after Coke rolled down the window. Yes, officer, Coke replied politely. They'll be back any minute. This is a no parking zone, you know, the policeman said. I'm going to have to give your parents a ticket. The officer wrote up the ticket on his pad and slipped it under the windshield wiper. It won't happen again, sir, Coke said. See that it doesn't. The twins breathed a sigh of relief. They'd gotten a ticket, but at least nobody had tried to kill them. It wasn't until the policeman drove away that Pep got out of the RV and took a good look at the ticket. And this is all it said. Oh no, it looks like another cipher to me. It's not a cipher, it's not a ticket, Pep said. It's a cipher. You mean that cop wasn't a real cop? Asked her brother. Pep didn't answer. She didn't care about who the cop was. She was already juggling the letters around in her head. It could be a twisted path cipher, she said after a few minutes of staring at it. What does that mean? Look, Pep said, picking up a pencil. Don't think of the letters as going left to right or right to left. Think of them as being along a twisted path that can start at any letter. So she put the point of the pencil below the G on the bottom right corner of the cipher, and then she began to draw a line. So she's like drawing a path right through all the letters. Go into the meditation garden, Coke said as he followed the twisted path. What's that supposed to mean? There was no time to discuss it because their parents came down the sidewalk and got in the RV. You kids should have come along, Mrs. McDonald said. It was cool. Do they have a meditation garden in there? Pep asked. No, replied her mother, not that I know of. Dr. McDonald put the key in the ignition and started up the RV. Then, quite suddenly, he looked up for a moment and turned off the motor. He sat there, motionless, staring out the windshield at the Elvis Presley birthplace with a faraway look in his eyes. It seemed like he was in a trance. Ben, are you okay? Asked Mrs. McDonald. What's the matter, Dad? Asked Pep, alarmed. I think he might be having a stroke, said her mother. Call 911. I'll go get help. But before she could even pull the door handle, Dr. McDonald snapped out of it. I've got it, he said excitedly. Got what? They all asked. I just figured out what I should write my next book about. What, Dad? I'm going to write a biography of Elvis Presley. What, Dad? Coke and Pep looked at each other, horrified looks on their faces. That's a wonderful idea, Ben, said Mrs. McDonald. Elvis started out dirt poor in this little house and became one of the most famous people of the 20th century. He died tragically. You can use your history background. You love his music. He'll sell like crazy, Dr. McDonald said. A lot better than the impact of coal on the Industrial Revolution. And as their parents got more and more excited with the idea, Coke and Pep got more and more upset. That's all they needed. Their dad researching the life of Elvis while evil Elvis was trying to kill them. I think it's a terrible idea, Dad, Coke said. Nobody cares about Elvis anymore. He died like 40 years ago. Yeah, Pep agreed. And besides, there are probably hundreds of books about Elvis Presley. That just proves people have a hunger to read about him, Dr. McDonald said. But mine will be better. I'll find out everything there is to know about him. I'll write the definitive biography of Elvis. Mark my words, this will get me on the bestseller list. He had a dreamy look on his face as he started up the engine again and pulled away from 306 Elvis Presley Drive. If you wanted to find out everything there is to know about Elvis Presley, there's one place you'd need to go. Graceland, Elvis Presley's house, Memphis, Tennessee. I think we might be able to finish this out here. All right, let's go. Chapter 29, Graceland. Mrs. McDonald pulled the road atlas out of the glove compartment and spread it across the dashboard. She was thrilled to see that Tupelo, Mississippi was only about 100 miles from Memphis. Unless they hit some unexpected traffic along the way, they would be in Tennessee in less than 2 hours. Graceland was just a few miles past the state line. She got on her cell phone and found out that there was an RV campground right across the street from Graceland. Perfect! While he drove, Dr. McDonald's face showed a sense of calm and glassy-eyed peacefulness that hadn't been there for a long time. He was humming the old Paul Simon song, Graceland. I don't know this song. I'm going to have to look it up. Graceland, Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to Graceland. In his head, he had already started planning out his Elvis biography. The first chapter would begin on the day Elvis and his twin brother, Jesse, were born in Tupelo. The chapter would end that very same day when Jesse died in childbirth. In the back of the RV, meanwhile, the twins realized there was nothing they could do to avoid a trip to Graceland and an inevitable confrontation with evil Elvis. They were nervously preparing to go to war. Coke carefully read the instructions on his fireworks so he would know how to light them, aim them, and shoot them. Pep was loosening up her throwing arm. She knew it might be up to her to take out evil Elvis with the Frisbee grenade. She would only get one shot, so it would have to count. She felt like Luke Skywalker preparing for the dive into the Death Star. The twins had a few other weapons at their disposal, but it wasn't like they would be much help in a fight. One roll of duct tape, a can of silly string, 2 yo-yos, a jar of bubbles, a can of Spam they got at the Spam Museum in Minnesota, a can of alligator repellent. If worse came to worse, they could hit someone with the poop on you toilet seat their mother had bought them back at the Mustard Museum in Middleton, Wisconsin. It was pretty hard. They were speeding along I-22, traveling west and north diagonally across the state of Mississippi. Dr. McDonald didn't look like he was going to stop for food, drink, or stretch his legs. He was a man on a mission. The countryside was flying by at 60 miles per hour, and nobody was paying much attention to the scenery. Shortly after they drove through Holly Springs National Forest, they passed this. Tennessee welcomes you. When they crossed the state line and there was no exuberant outburst from the back seat, Mrs. McDonald turned to see it around to see if anything was wrong. No woohoo, she asked. No facts about Tennessee? It's the volunteer state, you know. I volunteer to go home, Coke said glumly. Minutes later, they reached the outskirts of Memphis. Dr. McDonald noticed the gas tank was close to empty, so he pulled into a station to fill it. When he started up the engine again, the GPS indicated that they were just a few miles from Graceland. He made a left onto East Shelby Drive and drove a short time before he came to a street marked Elvis Presley Boulevard. "This is it, Ben," Mrs. McDonald said. "Make a right here." It wasn't a fancy neighborhood, as they had expected. There were no other mansions around, and few houses at all. Most of the buildings on the street were pawn shops, gas stations, fast food restaurants, and motels. They knew they were getting close to Graceland when they passed the Elvis Presley Boulevard Shopping Center and a Days Inn motel with a sign out front that said, "Before Elvis, there was nothing. John Lennon." "I'm so excited," said Mrs. McDonald, and just past that motel, they saw this on the left. "Graceland, home of Elvis A. Presley, 3717. "This is it," said Dr. McDonald, and he began singing Hound Dog. The kids groaned. Directly across the street from Graceland is a hotel called, naturally enough, the Heartbreak Hotel. Of course, what else would it be? And directly behind the hotel is a large campground filled with RVs. Dr. McDonald pulled into the parking lot, and Mrs. McDonald got out and went to check in at the office. "I think we're going to need this," Coke whispered to his sister as he grabbed his backpack, but his father stopped him. "Do you really think they're going to let you take that backpack into Graceland?" he said. "It's like a museum. Use your head, son." Coke looked to Pep. "I'll take my Frisbee," she said. "You take the thing everywhere," said Dr. McDonald, "and I haven't seen you throw it once." "I have a feeling I'm going to throw it this time, Dad." Coke stashed his backpack in the RV and shut the door. It was going to be up to Pep to defend them this time. Mrs. McDonald returned from checking in at the office. The whole family walked through the parking lot of the Heartbreak Hotel and followed signs to the Graceland ticket window. There were a few tour options. In addition to seeing Elvis's home, visitors can also visit the Elvis Presley Car Museum, which includes 33 cars, motorcycles, go-karts, dune buggies, and other vehicles owned by Elvis. There's also an optional tour of his private jet, the Lisa Marie, which has a living room, a bedroom, gold-plated seatbelts, suede chairs, leather-covered tables, and 24-karat gold-flecked sinks. Wow. That just seems a little ridiculous to me, actually. "Doesn't that sound cool?" asked Mrs. McDonald. "No," the twins replied in unison. "You kids are so grumpy," she told them. "I wish you'd try to get into this. You're going to remember this experience for the rest of your lives." I bet we will, Coke replied. Dr. McDonald bought the tickets and handed one to each of the twins. Okay, I think you guys should take the Graceland tour first, he told them. Mom and I need to speak with somebody in the office about researching my book. Coke and Pep looked at their parents with sad puppy dog eyes. We'll meet up later, Mrs. McDonald said. You kids wouldn't want to hang around with us with old fogies like us anyways. We want to go with you old fogies, Pep whined. You know what, Dr. McDonald said. This is ridiculous. You kids are 13 now. It's time for you to show a little independence. You don't need us leading you around like your toddlers. How are you going to make your way in the world if you follow us everywhere? That's what's wrong with kids today. I think Dr. McDonald's still a little grumpy. But we're scared, Pep admitted. Scared, said Mrs. McDonald. That's crazy. This place is like Disney World. Their parents said goodbye, and Coke and Pep walked away, dragging their heels. They stalled for a few minutes to look in a gift shop that sold Elvis playing cards, spoons, t-shirts, mints, photos, videos, CDs, dolls, nail files, back scratchers, and just about every product imaginable with a picture of Elvis Presley on it. Elvis is probably making more money dead than he ever did alive, Coke commented. Finally, the twins got on the shuttle bus that would take them across the street to Graceland. Nobody else was on the bus. Maybe everything will be all right, Pep said hopefully. Maybe evil Elvis isn't even here and we got all worked up over nothing. Where is everybody? Coke asked the bus driver. Oh, it's pretty quiet today, she replied. Most of the tourists are from the Professional Elvis Impersonators Association. The what? Pep asked. The Professional Elvis Impersonators Association, said the bus driver. They're a real group, and there are about 100 of them are here already, with more on the way. They come in costume and everything. I tell you, those guys are nuts. We know, said Coke. It was a quick trip across the street. The bus drove up the winding driveway that cut across the front lawn and stopped in front of Graceland. Oh, here it is. The colonial-style house with 4 white columns wasn't as grand as the twins expected. It looked a little like a town library, but the lawn and landscaping were perfectly manicured. A plaque out front said the house had been built in 1939 and was on the National Register of Historic Places. There was a uniformed guard standing around to help people with questions and directions. So this is it, huh? Coke asked as he got off the bus. Yep, the guard said. Elvis bought this house when he was just 22 years old and he paid $100,000 for it. You, dear reader, probably don't know or care how much a house costs today. In our area, you can buy a house for $100,000, but it's not going to be like the fanciest house. There's no reason why you should. But a place like Graceland, even without a famous owner, will go for many millions of dollars. Where do we go first? Pep asked the guard. Go to the living room. Wait, what did you say? Go to the living room, said the guard, pointing to the right of the front steps. Coke turned to Pep. That was the first cipher, they said simultaneously. There were 2 white statues of lions on the side of the front steps. The twins climbed the steps slowly, looking all around for trouble. Okay, Coke said, let's find evil Elvis, take him out with the frisbee before he can lay a hand on us, and blow this pop stand. Sounds like a plan, Pep agreed. Coke pulled open the door and saw 4 Elvis impersonators with white jumpsuits and slicked back hair in the front hallway, and he tensed up instinctively. Throw it, Pep, Coke said. Let's kill them all. Calm down, Pep said, holding her brother back. None of them are evil Elvis. How do you know? They're not wearing masks, she explained. The Elvis impersonators were weeping at the sight of Elvis's living room and consoling each other. Coke and Pep entered the house cautiously. She held her frisbee grenade tightly, ready to let it fly at any moment. The living room was almost all white. White rug, white chairs, and a long white couch. There was a big mirror over the fireplace and 2 big stained glass peacocks on the doors. A rope across the doorway prevented visitors from going into the room. This is where his funeral service was held, said one of the weeping Elvises, and that made him sob all the more. Outside the living room, there were steps leading upstairs, but the 2nd floor was closed to the public. Just past the living room was a smaller music room with a black grand piano. 3 more Elvis impersonators were in there, speaking in solemn tones and dabbing their eyes with tissues. The twins walked cautiously down the hall on the right to Elvis's parents' bedroom, and then across the foyer to the dining room and the kitchen. There were several more Elvis impersonators there. This place is crawling with Elvises, Coke told Pep. How will we know when we see evil Elvis? We'll know. It wasn't clear which way to go next, so Pep asked one of the guards. Go to the TV room, he said, pointing downstairs. Coke looked at his sister. That was the 2nd cipher. They walked down the steps. To the left was a room with 3 old-time TV sets side by side, presumably so Elvis could watch 3 channels at the same time. There was yellow carpet on the floor, a lightning bolt painted on the wall, and a sculpture of a white monkey on the coffee table. It was getting creepy, and Pep grabbed Coke by the elbow. To the right of the TV room was a small room with folded multicolored fabric on the walls and ceiling, and in the middle of the room was a pool table. The third cipher said to go to the pool room, Coke recalled. That means the jungle room will be next. And so it was. They climbed the steps again to the most unusual, and some would say weirdest room of them all. There was green shag carpeting, not just on the floor, but also on the ceiling. A waterfall filled one wall, and oddly carved wooden chairs covered with animal fur were scattered around the room. From there, a door led outside. There had been no signs of evil Elvis inside Graceland. He's not here, Pep said hopefully as they walked into the backyard. Don't let down your guard, Coke warned his sister. Be ready with the frisbee. Graceland has a huge backyard with horses grazing behind a white fence. More Elvis impersonators were walking around the grounds, and the twins looked them over carefully and decided they were not a threat. The path led to two separate buildings out back. The Hall of Gold was filled with gold records on the walls, stage costumes, and posters from Elvis movies. The racquetball building once had a full-size court, but now houses more awards, memorabilia, and photos. That was it. They had toured every room and every building at Graceland. There had been lots of Elvis sightings, but no sightings of evil Elvis. Even so, the twins refused to relax. There was the sense of a lurking presence everywhere, a sense of impending doom that never went away. I have a bad feeling, Pep said. So do I, said her brother, and that's when they saw this. Next up, meditation garden. That was the last cipher, Pep said. Go into the meditation garden. The path led around the south end of the house, where there was a kidney-shaped swimming pool. It was smaller than you would expect for such a famous celebrity. Behind the pool was a circular fountain and a statue of Jesus. This is it, Coke said solemnly as they entered the meditation garden. They were alone. There were 4 graves in front of them, laid out side by side in an arc. Elvis, his mother, his father, and his grandmother. There was also a little memorial to his twin brother Jesse. Flowers had been placed all around, along with notes sent by his fans, and at the top end of Elvis's tomb was an eternal flame that danced in the wind. He's down there, Pep said quietly as they stood in front of the tomb, 6 feet under. A few Elvis impersonators strolled into the meditation garden and immediately began sobbing at the sight of Elvis's grave. Maybe we should, say a prayer or something? Coke whispered to his sister. They closed their eyes and prayed silently. When they opened them again, a figure was standing at the other side of Elvis's tomb, behind the flickering flame, his arms crossed in front of him. It was evil Elvis. Chapter 30, Evil Elvis Unmasked. And this is the last chapter, so we're just about there. I love an eternal flame, Evil Elvis said, don't you? Ah! Pep fell back as if she had been hit by a strong gust of wind. There was nowhere to run. There were 2 Elvises on either side of them, and they weren't crying anymore. They had their arms crossed, and they were glowering. Be ready to throw the frisbee grenade, Coke whispered to Pep. This is our chance to get rid of him once and for all. I've got to hand it to you kids, Evil Elvis said. I never thought you would make it out of the world of Coke alive. And after you did, I was sure the G-Force accelerator would be the end of you. But here you are. You know what? You got spunk. Coke was about to say something, but Evil Elvis wasn't done. I hate spunk, he added. Pep fingered the frisbee grenade, pushing on the power button. She was waiting for the perfect moment to fling it and hoping that her aim would be true. Why do you hate us so much, Coke asked. We never did anything to you. But Evil Elvis wasn't in the mood to answer questions. He had his own agenda. It's such a shame that Elvis Presley had to die so young, he said. The same will be said about you two. Coke looked left and right, searching for an escape path in case Pep missed with the frisbee grenade or if it failed to detonate. Pep tightened her grip on the frisbee. Who are you really, Coke asked. Why don't you take off that silly mask and show your face? We all wear a mask, don't we? Said Evil Elvis. You pretend to be a couple of sweet, innocent kids on vacation with your parents, but you're cold-hearted killers. That's what you are. You killed Archie Clone in Washington, and you nearly killed Dr. Warsaw in Wisconsin. You know what, though? They were both trying to kill them. It was self-defense. They didn't set out to kill anybody or even hurt anybody. That voice. Coke had heard it before, and he tried to place it. It sounded strange, like Evil Elvis was trying to disguise his real voice. What are you going to do to us here? Coke asked. Stomp us to death with your blue suede shoes? Evil Elvis laughed. No, you would only find some way to escape, he replied. I'm tired of playing games with you. I have a simpler idea. Do you know what Elvis used to do when he didn't like what was on TV? Change the channel? Coke guessed. No, said evil Elvis. He would shoot the screen. And with that, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a pistol. Now, Pep, Coke shouted. Pep quickly jumped into position and brought back her arm and whipped the Frisbee hard at evil Elvis. The Frisbee hit him on the wrist and ricocheted off, landing in the swimming pool behind him. The gun fell out of his hand and went off when it hit the ground. You little punks, shouted evil Elvis. Run, Coke shouted. Get them! Remember the Frisbee, it needed to, it's on the second hit. So, and it can't be in water. So she needed to, like, bounce it off something and then hit evil Elvis. So, I mean, it worked. She knocked the gun out of his hand. So that's good. There was a driveway next to the meditation garden that went alongside Graceland and went out to the street. Coke and Pep took off in that direction, pursued by evil Elvis and 4 other Elvis impersonators. Where are we going? Pep yelled. I don't know, Coke yelled back. Follow me. When they made it around to the front of the mansion, they had about 5 steps on the closest Elvis impersonator. A shuttle bus was waiting to take visitors back across the street, but the twins didn't get on it. With Coke running in front, they dashed across the huge lawn, out the gate, and into Elvis Presley Boulevard. It's a wide street with 4 lanes of traffic, and cars were whizzing by in both directions. Grabbing his sister's hand, Coke ran out into the street anyway. A blue Toyota swerved out of the way at the last instant and avoided hitting them by inches. There was honking and cursing from the drivers. Watch out! What are you kids nuts? Coke and Pep dodged 3 more cars, almost getting run over several times. One of the cars screeched to a halt and got rear-ended by the truck right behind it. That provided a screen to slow down the Elvises, who were already huffing and puffing. Coke made it to the other side of the street unscathed. Coke and Pep, sorry. Come on, Coke said to his sister. We can hide in the RV. Pep turned around for a moment to look behind. The Elvises were still trying to cross the street. The twins ran past several souvenir stores, around the back of the Heartbreak Hotel, and into the campground behind it. It took them a minute or 2 to find their RV among the dozens of them parked out there, many of them looking identical. Coke opened the side door, thankful that their parents usually forgot to lock it, and climbed inside. Pep slammed the door behind them. They got down on the floor so they couldn't be seen through any windows. They were breathing heavily and sweating, their hearts pounding. You were supposed to, shh, warned her brother. He might hear us. You were supposed to skip the Frisbee grenade off the ground, Coke whispered. Don't you remember? It was programmed to explode on the second impact. I forgot, Pep whispered. I panicked. You should be thankful I knocked the gun out of his hand. Okay, we're safe here. What do we do now? Nothing, Coke said. We'll wait for Mom and Dad to get back. Then we'll get out of here. Cowering there on the floor of the RV, it felt like an hour had passed. In fact, it was only a few minutes. They listened carefully for noises outside, but only heard the sound of a jet overhead. Coke reached over for his backpack full of fireworks. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized that buying all that stuff had been a big mistake. He should have known that he wouldn't be able to bring the backpack into any museums or public buildings that had security. Even if he could, it would have been impossible to open the backpack the instant they were threatened, pick up the fireworks, light them, and get away without blowing himself up. That was $100 worth of fireworks wasted. 5 minutes had passed since they had been hiding in the RV. I think we lost them, Pep said. That's when the door opened. It was evil Elvis. Ah! Pep screamed. Coke, do something. Well, here you are, said evil Elvis. I've been looking all over for you two. Coke decided the only defense was a good offense. He jumped on evil Elvis, flailing wildly at him with both fists. Leave us alone, Coke shouted. While Coke and evil Elvis wrestled on the floor, Pep managed to find the can of silly string and she started spraying it all over evil Elvis's mask. When that didn't seem to work, she got out the can of alligator repellent she had bought at south of the border and started shooting it at evil Elvis. He grabbed the can and flung it toward the driver's seat. No more Mr. Nice Guy, he said, fending off Coke's blows. You two are dead. Pep tried to open up the bubble jar that Bones and Maya had given them so she could throw the bubble soap into evil Elvis's eyes and blind him, but she couldn't twist the top off. She tried to hit him over the head with a can of Spam, but it went flying out of her hand. She looked around desperately for something she could use as a weapon. The poop on you toilet seat that her mother had gotten at the Muster Museum. Pep grabbed it and swung it at him, but she got off balance and only delivered a glancing blow. That's enough, evil Elvis shouted, ripping the toilet seat out of Pep's hand and brandishing it like a baseball bat. Coke fell back, exhausted. His shirt was ripped. He had no fight left in him. Evil Elvis reached into a pocket, the same pocket he had pulled a gun from in the meditation garden. This was it. The twins were done for. It was over. Now Coke was really mad. I can't believe you forgot to lock the door, he yelled at his sister. This is all your fault. I thought you locked it, Pep shouted back. How could I lock it, Coke yelled. You came in after me. There's no reason to bicker, kids, Evil Elvis said. It doesn't matter who was supposed to lock it. You'll both be dead soon. Instead of pulling a gun from his pocket, he pulled out a cigarette lighter and flicked it on. Before I seal up the door from the outside and drop this in the gas tank, Evil Elvis said, it's only fair to let you know who was responsible for killing you. And with his other hand, he pulled off the Elvis mask and fake Elvis hair, and it turned out that he was a she. Aunt Judy! Shouted the twins. That's right, you little twerps, Aunt Judy said, now using her normal female voice. And I thought you two were so smart. But you're our aunt, shouted Pep. Why would you want to hurt us? Our mother is your sister. And you know what, Aunt Judy said, I always hated my sister. I couldn't believe she actually had the nerve to show up for my wedding. There's only one person I care about, Dr. Herman Warsaw, my husband. Oh, I wish I could see the look on my sister's face when she finds your bodies in here. Coke clutched his backpack to his chest. Slowly, he removed his hand until he found the zipper. The fireworks would be their only chance. Dr. Warsaw told you to kill us? Pep asked, trembling. Let's just say Hermie suggested that while he's recuperating from his injuries that you caused, by the way, I could, shall we say, take matters into my own hands. But I thought you were on your honeymoon, Pep said. Oh, we will be, Aunt Judy said, just as soon as you two are dead. Then our minds will be at ease and we can enjoy our life together. Coke found the zipper pull on his backpack. He made a cough to mask the sound as he tried to nonchalantly open it. Hey, give me that, Aunt Judy shouted as she grabbed the backpack away from him. What's in here? More of your little toys? Yeah, Coke lied. It's my toys. Leave them alone. It would be a shame if anything were to happen to them, Aunt Judy said, holding the flame from the cigarette lighter near the bottom of the backpack. She's got a flame near a backpack full of fireworks. It's a really bad idea, Coke warned. Well, if you're saying it, I'm guessing it must be a really good idea, said Aunt Judy. No, seriously, said Pep. You really shouldn't do that. You expect me to listen to you kids? Asked Aunt Judy, moving the flame closer to the backpack. Coke shrank back instinctively. Stop! What's the matter? Asked Aunt Judy, talking to Baby Coke. Are you afraid your little toys are going to burn? Boo-hoo! She couldn't see it, but one of the edges of the backpack had ignited, and the flame was moving up to the side. Pep, Coke hollered, jump! Both twins dove for the door at the same moment the first explosion detonated. It was the exploding mosquito, a spinning device that ordinarily shoots up in the air and erupts with a huge blast of light, sparks, and smoke. Since it was confined inside Coke's backpack, it blew up right there, which set off a chain reaction. Coke and Pep had tumbled out the door by the time the gunpowder inside the classic repeater 4-pack exploded with a flash and shredded the backpack. Aunt Judy didn't know what hit her. The RV was rocked by a series of blasts that slammed her against the wall. Rockets were flying around the confined space and exploding into red, white, and blue fireballs. Smoke was everywhere. The curtains had caught on fire. Aunt Judy struggled to get up and get out of the RV, but the flying rockets made it impossible. Run, Coke yelled. If one of those things reaches the gas tank, the whole thing's gonna blow. And a few seconds later, that's exactly what happened. One of the rockets damaged the floor of the RV and made a tiny puncture in a seam of the gas tank, which had been filled to the brim a few hours earlier. When a burning cinder fell through the hole, the tank exploded in a huge orange fireball with wood, metal, and burning debris flying in every direction. By the time the fire department arrived, there wasn't much left except for some twisted metal and tires, which were still burning and giving off an awful smelling stench. Everything else was burned beyond recognition. Coke and Pep didn't stop running until they got to the entrance of the campground. Exhausted and still in a state of shock, they sat on the bench there, catching their breath while the RV burned. Lots of people had gathered around to see the fire, but nobody paid any attention to the twins. Well, Coke finally said, I guess we don't have to worry about Evil Elvis anymore. A few minutes later, their parents came strolling back from their tour of Graceland. Great news, Dr. McDonald told the kids. I spoke with some people in the office, and they're going to let me look at Elvis's personal papers for my book. Hey, what happened to you two? You're a mess. It's a long story, Coke said. I can't believe you ripped another shirt, said Mrs. McDonald. Why can't you take better care of your clothing? I wish you'd be more careful. Come on, Dr. McDonald said, throwing an arm around each of the twins. Let's go back to the RV. Yeah, about the RV. All right, we've got a little epilogue here. What? Are you kidding me? They blew up the RV and evil Elvis was Aunt Judy the whole time? I didn't see that coming. What happened to Mrs. Higgins? Where did the bowler dudes run off to? And how are the McDonald's going to get home to California now? To find out the answers to these and other questions, well, you'll just have to read the Genius Files #4. And that is the end. We definitely ran very long with that, and I apologize. I just wanted to get it finished because it really was a fun end. And it was, you got Judy. That's ridiculous. What is it about this Herman Warsaw guy? Why does everybody like him and want to do bad things for him? I don't get it. So anyways, that is the end of Rogues Reads. I hope you have enjoyed these books. I certainly have, and I actually am going to start reading book 4 tonight because I want to know how this series turns out. So hopefully some other people enjoyed it as well. If you need these books or any books, please let us know at the library. Give us a call or go on our website, put stuff on hold. You can come pick it up through our curbside. We will have some information coming out next week about some summer events. We're not doing anything in person, but we definitely have some more online stuff coming your way for the summer. So thanks for spending the spring with me and Rogue and Griffin and Ray and, you know, their naps. And I will hopefully see all of your beautiful faces at the library sometime soon. All right, I miss you guys. Thanks. Bye.